On this week's Gridiron Report, we have a Red Wings season update, the retirement of Sergei Fedorov's number, and Grid of the Week. And it's all brought to you by Pins and Aces, our favorite spot for all your golf apparel needs. Use promo code GRIT for 21% off any product at pinsandaces.com. Let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim. From the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Grit Iron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire. Grit Iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Grit Iron Report, where the stories are proud.
Well, welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First All Detroit Sports podcast presented by Mic Drop Studios. Today is Wednesday, January 14th, and we are just 1 week outside of Lions football, and I'm having withdrawals already. Like, it sucks so bad watching these playoffs, and they've been pretty good games. All games that I feel like if the Lions are in there, we could maybe make some noise. It just sucks so bad that we're not still playing, and we had to kind of look to other sports, and we love the other sports too, but we're a Lions First podcast. And it really sucks that we're not playing. But then I always do come back to like, man, if we were still playing, we mentioned in the last episode of the season that like, had we have kind of snuck our way in and still playing, I mean, who knows? Maybe John and Morton still would have been here in Detroit making calls. Like, who knows if we would have made the coaching decisions we have made yet, and maybe things would just kind of been keep going in this limbo, this terrible limbo. So I keep coming back to that. But damn it, I'm having withdrawals of Lions football already.
It's a good point. Like, a hard reset is exactly what the Lions needed. I mean, if you watched any game that season, you're like, this team is just not what they were a year ago. So yes, hard resets needed, but at the same time, great point. Wild card weekend, holy shit. I mean, just banger after banger. Every game was great. I mean, last night's game, Texans and Steelers, that was kind of a snicker towards the end, but really it was a close game for most of that game too. So just ton of awesome games, and it just makes you think like, man, dude, This playoffs is wide open. Like, what if the Lions were in it? I know this team had flaws, but either way, you know what? We're outside looking in. It's the way it is. But I guess silver lining, Tyler, it allows us some time to talk about some other Detroit sports, some really hot Detroit sports right now. Pistons are doing their thing. They're doing great. We will break them down in details in just a couple weeks from now. Trade deadline's coming up, but we want to see out of the moves from Trajan Langdon and the boys down there. But this week, I'm pumped to talk Red Wings, man.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think the fans talk to us most online about, that we don't talk enough about the Red Wings. And admittedly, I know I've said this before, I'm just not as in tuned with the NHL as I am the NBA, MLB, NFL. Like, I love the Red Wings. I watch them as every time they're on live TV, or I can catch them on TV, I'll watch them for sure. But around the league, on a Sunday for football, it doesn't matter what game is on, what two NFL teams are playing. I'm going to watch 100% of that game, and I'm going to be intrigued. I'm going to watch partially because of fantasy applications, and same with NBA. I play fantasy basketball too, so I'm watching pretty much any game that's on TV. I'm going to watch it. I'm just not that way with the NHL. I'm only going to watch if it's the Red Wings. So that's why, like, I know we catch a lot of flack for not going in depth about the Red Wings and the NHL, and so we just don't have that much time. Like you said, now we do have the time, so we're going to spend this entire episode going over the Red Wings. We had the extremely satisfying and finally the jersey retirement of Sergei Fedorov last night. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, 2 nights ago, the retirement of number 91. So we're going to talk about Sergei Fedorov, that retirement. If we have some time, we got some games to play at the end, and then we'll wrap up with some grit of the week. But yeah, I feel like the Pistons and the Red Wings are actually two very similar spots in which they're both leading their division. But there still is a question mark. It's like, okay, are we playing? Are we what's the word I'm looking for? Are we fighting up above our line here, or are we just in playing just really hot, or are we actually a really good team? Right now, the Detroit Red Wings are in first place in the Atlantic. They are 28-15 with 60 points. Now, I will say the rest of the Atlantic, I mean, there's like no room to breathe. So we're number one with 60 points. You got number two, Tampa Bay, with 59 points. Number three, the Canadians with 58 points. I mean, they are right behind us. You look at just the other divisions. The Metro, the top team has 60 points, just like us. But then the second place team, the Islanders, have 55. You look at down to like the wild card, 53, 52. So there's no room to breathe, no room to slip up for this team. but they're pulling it out. Much like the Pistons, they're not giving us really a lot of reasons to think that they can't pull it out, midway, a quarter of the way through the season.
Yeah, dude, wings are hot right now. They're scalding hot. It's awesome. We have seen it in years past. This is kind of right around the time where like the wings will cool off and then catch flame again, then cool off again. So like
Yep.
you are waiting here thinking maybe the other shoe is gonna drop, but at the same time, I just you love how they're playing right now. They've winners of 4 straight, including just an absolute thriller on Monday night, Sergei night, when you actually coughed up a 3-goal lead, won it in overtime. We'll break down that a little bit more just a little bit later, but just Red Wings in general, just they're awesome right now. You broke it down, but the thing is, yeah, the Atlantic Division, it's cooking. It's cooking alongside the Red Wings right now. You mentioned the Lightning. They are winners of 10 straight,
Yeah.
which is just insane. You kind of thought their season might be over, then they rip off 10 straight, which in the NHL that's pretty much unheard of, man. Like you're bound to catch a loss, especially you have a couple back-to-backs in there. I'm assuming they do. Winners of 10 straight's crazy. Canadians just 2 points behind the Red Wings. Even the Maple Leafs, they've won
Red
8
hot.
out of their last 10. The Sabres have won 8 out of their last 10. The Canadians, 2 points back. I think I might have already said that. This is a hot division, but as we stand right now, Tuesday night, hopefully Wednesday, as you're listening, the Wings are still atop of it, and I'm super pumped to say that this is the best that they have done through, I think, January in probably a decade. As they sit right now, 60 points. I love what I'm seeing. A lot of their young guys are playing really well right now. Lucas Raymond, after a bit of a down season for him last year, he's back and better than ever. 49 points, tied for the lead for the Red Wings with Alex DeBrincat, who has been insanely good. The Cat, 24 points and 25 assists, so super balanced. And that 24 goals, I should say, 49 points, 24 goals leads the Red Wings. So yeah, he's playing insanely good, and it's tremendous to see.
Yeah. So looking at this team, I'm glad you mentioned where we are right now and kind of what we've seen before, because we've seen them get off to semi-slow starts and then get red hot and then get slow. And it always coincides with, especially looking back to last year with the Four Nations tournament, which Larkin and really a few of the other Red Wings guys just had insane showings. And then coming back from that, you don't think it was related in any way to that, but then coming back from that, they all just never really caught the same fight. It was almost like the break, or I should say the lack thereof a break, because these guys, a lot of our guys went and played for the Four Nations. It kind of stalled any sort of momentum we had going for us. So it is concerning. I heard on the radio today, and I have not fact checked this. I just heard it on the radio, so don't come at me if it is not true. Kyle, guess how many winning months, or I should say winning months of March we've had in the last 15 years, since 2010.
Probably not a lot. I don't know, dude. Is March just a bad month? Maybe like 6.
In the month of March, we haven't had a winning record in the month of March all but one time in the last 15 years. We've had one winning record in March in 15 years. So, we've seen this team get red hot and then just collapse down the stretch. And there are signs, that point to that happening again. You look at our team, obviously number 1, 60 points. We have a +4 point differential. The second place team, Tampa Bay Lightning, again with 59 points, they have a +43 point differential. And you just mentioned the Tampa Bay Lightning are extremely hot, winners of 10 in a row. The third place team, the Canadians, are +6 point differential. So it's not necessarily that crazy, but the Tampa Bay Lightnings are right there with a much, much, much better point differential there with +43. So we've seen it before, but I mean, you broke it down, the individual guys. You mentioned DeBrincat, who obviously started the season actually really not sluggish, I don't want to say, but he couldn't catch a break. He had really good shots on goal. It really did seem like he was hitting hitting every inch of the goal without actually burying one. He just couldn't get that monkey off his back. Finally, he broke free, started racking up the goals, and he's been absolutely fantastic. I think Dylan Larkin is obviously having one of his best seasons of his career. Really, I was never really sold on whether I thought Larkin could be the captain, we're the C on a Stanley Cup champion team. I think he's definitely almost put that to bed for me. But a lot of the other guys that have just really performed as well. You look at Emmett Finney, who had a great start of the season. He's kind of come back down to earth, but he still at one point, was in the top 3 to 4 for the Calder Cup, which is obviously the top rookie in the NHL. You had Mo Seider, who's absolutely playing fantastic. Again, he's starting to slow down just a little bit, but he still is having an insane season. And then the last thing I think that has really propelled this team this late, push is the goaltending. That's something that we've struggled tremendously for years now. We never have had a real number one goalie, let alone a 1-2 punching goalies. We went over this trade when it happened, went out and traded for Gibson. Gibson is a goalie, if you guys remember that breakdown, an older guy, previously had a really good career, but had a really poor season last year. I think it actually was one of his worst seasons of his career last year, but he had a really, really bad defense in front of him. Now, we don't have a super great defense, but we had a better defense than what was in front of him, I believe, with Anaheim. And so we brought him over. We were trading in the offseason, brought him over here, and he started the season horrendous, like unplayable bad. It was really, really bad. He suddenly has caught fire. He's up to all his numbers. I think he had almost a perfect month in the month of December. He was really, really fantastic. And so it's just kind of a number of different guys putting it together while you have the guys that, your veteran, your stars, your Patrick Kanes, who maybe are performing a little bit under at the moment. Of course, Patty Kane hit his 500th the other night, which is just an insane feat. But you got guys like him who maybe just aren't performing as you expect him to be. So they're still doing all this with a number of kind of miscellaneous different guys, which at the end of the day, it does make me a little bit concerned, because that's kind of like what the Tigers were doing all season. It was like a bunch of miscellaneous guys. Like James Van Riemsdyk is playing fantastic. Andrew Kopp is playing really well. He had the overtime winner the other night. Again, it's these miscellaneous guys that are playing really well. And is that sustainable? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But for the time, it's really fun hockey to watch.
A lot to unpack there. You touched like a million different good points. I just wanted to let you cook before I jumped in. You mentioned Van Riemsdyk, JVR. I mean, just what an outstanding season for him at his age. I mean, I don't have his age up in front of me, but he's got to be just older than dirt. He's obviously a tremendous talent, but he's just up there in age. He's obviously past his prime. He is just contributing at a very high level for what he is and what you signed him to do. Yeah, shout out JVR. He's been tremendous. And then Gibby, you talked about Gibby. I mean, I'm racking my brain. Like, when is the last time the Red Wings have actually had a goalie where, we can lean on? And I'm not saying that Gibby necessarily is that goalie, because he did struggle at the beginning of the season. But right now, he is playing at such a high caliber. And I mean, maybe it's a long shot, but if he can continue this throughout the rest of the season, throughout the playoffs, like, the best teams are not always winning in the NHL. It's, similar to MLB in a sense, where it's kind of a crapshoot. And that's what makes the playoffs so awesome in the NHL, is that really any team can beat any other team. And a lot of times it comes down to who has a hot goalie. So again, I know it's only January. We're literally just getting into the dog days of the NHL season. There is so much left, so much grind that needs to happen. Guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to play hurt. So, it'd be naive of me to say that Gibby is just going to continue to excel, but I'm praying, I'm hoping for it, because if he does, I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. This team could beat anyone in the league, maybe except the Avalanche, who are just having an insane season, maybe one of the best seasons we've seen in the NHL in a while. But I love having a good goalie. We haven't had it in so long, and I'm so damn pumped for it.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't necessarily need John Gibson to be as good as he's been for the last month. You just need him to be a decent amount better than how he started the season. Like I said, which was pretty much unplayable. So right now, John Gibson is tied for third in the NHL with shutouts this season. In the year, he has 3. The leader, they're tied for first. They both have 4. So right there's a number of guys tied for third with 3. But I mean, you look at all these guys, and everyone is just, like I said, performing. Now it's going to get a lot more difficult. They have the Wings have a really difficult stretch there, and a back-to-back again tonight, I believe, going to Boston. And then they play the Maple Leafs, like you just mentioned, are red hot. So like they have a really difficult schedule coming up here, and we'll really be able to tell kind of what this team is made of. But like we said, it really doesn't mean anything unless come the springtime, when we're starting to get to down to the playoff race, where we're score tracking, trying to see how many points, who scores what points, and who's going to overtime, who's able to win in regulation. And that's when it really starts to matter. And that's when it seems like we always continue to piss down our own legs. So I mean, this is all great. This is all fun. It's fun hockey. Like we said, it's if it's on TV, great, I'm going to watch it. But at the end of the day, if you can't make it in the playoffs, or even make it into the playoffs, it's all for naught, because like you said, any team can win in the playoffs. And if you catch a team like the Red Wings with a goalie as hot as John Gibson was for the last month, hey, the sky's the limit in the playoffs. Like, anything can happen. And I don't know what would happen. We saw what the Pistons and the fans did at LCA when the Pistons were in the playoffs last year. against the Knicks, I still randomly I'll just pull up that Tim Hardaway Jr. clip of him hitting a three and just listen to the fans erupt. Like I was there for one of those games. Like it was insane. We're hockey town. We're hockey town, for God's sake. When we get playoff hockey back in the city of Detroit, back at LCA, all bets are off. Who knows how these? You got to believe there's going to be at least 3 octopuses.
Yeah,
octopi.
I think octopi, but don't quote me.
Octopi thrown onto the ice. Like at least, like it's going to be crazy, and who knows? That could be just enough to propel us there. So we're having a lot of fun with this. The other thing I'll mention, and then I'll let you kind of wrap up our wings talk here. Have you taken a look at the AHL or anything, and the AHL rankings or anything in the records there?
Yes. I saw the Grand Rapids Griffins were just wiping the floor with everyone, right? Were they like almost undefeated or something?
So yes, at the recording of this, I think they actually maybe lost last night, because this is a little bit worse than what I had seen before. Yes, the Grand Rapids. So this is with the Red Wings being obviously first place in the Atlantic. Yzerman shocked a lot of us when we started the season. We did a quick segment on it. He brought a lot of the young guys up. He brought up Emmett Finney. He brought up ASP. He brought up Branscard, MSB, MBS, whatever his name is. He brought up these guys up, and granted, some of them have stuck to here. Some of them were sent back down. We have a lot of the young kids up with the pro club right now, and the Grand Rapids Griffins are still absolutely killing it. They are 29-2. With 60 points. Their past 10 games are 8-1-1. They're 29-2, which is far and away the best of the first place. So you have the Bruins, who are 25-7. They're in first place in the division. They're Rockets, the Laval Rockets. I'm not sure who their affiliate is. They're in first place in the North Division. They're 22-12. You have the Colorado Eagles, who are in the first place in the Pacific Division. They're 22-7. And then you have us, the Grand Rapids Griffins, 29-2. So it is, I mean, maybe they're just on an insane heater, but like, it's only going to get better from here. When these kids are performing down there, when they're ready, they're going to come up and continue this. I hope that's not something that Stevie Y kind of leans on during the trade deadline once again, because we still need some defensive help. We still could use, some holes plugged here and there. But what Grand Rapids is doing, I take a moment and just look into the Grand Rapids team. To all our listeners, they're doing some special stuff in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, dude, that's huge. And it's much like the Tigers, who obviously, not quite the end of the season that we wanted, but Tigers still, a good season, and their minor league affiliates are all just crushing it right now. So the cupboard is very full for them, and the same goes to the Red Wings. So it's great to see, and I do think that Stevie Y, for as much as we gave him shit all of last season, probably the season before, off seasons, like he's just seemingly not doing enough at the trade deadline. For as much shit as we've given him, he can point to the Grand Rapids Griffins and say, hey, there's a lot of talent on this team. Maybe there's a reason why I didn't go out and trade all of these players. So I will give him his flowers there. With that being said, and we will break this down as we get closer to the NHL trade deadline. You mentioned needing defensemen. I couldn't agree more. I think that as far as goal scorers go, you probably have enough to make a run. But the defenseman is where I'm looking at it, and I'm like, yes. Our first line, obviously with Seider and Edvinsson, they're stellar, one of the best in the league. But then when you look at our second and third lines, it seems like you probably could have one more veteran presence or one more guy there that I think they're probably one trade away from really solidifying that defense. So again, we'll break that down later, who we might target, who Stevie Y should target at the trade deadline. But this team's cooking. Love the way they're playing right now, and I mentioned it, but the goal scorers. I mean, you got Raymond with 14, DeBrincat with 24, Larkin with 23, even JVR with 12. I love what they're doing, especially in overtime. It seems like overtime comes around 3-on-3. These guys excel, and I think there's probably a number of reasons. One of them is just the speed of a guy like Dylan Larkin on your first line. 3-on-3 in space. I just feel like he's really creating a lot in overtime. But this team, I believe they're like 6-2 in overtime. So they're good when it matters most. And that's something you love to see.
Yeah, and that's something we didn't see back before we had Tom McClellan, when we obviously hired him just over 1 year ago. Those were the things that we struggled with in the overtime. Just the small things, the details. And I mean, he famously, when he came here, he just said, play fucking hockey. Like, you guys are professional hockey players, for God's sake. Just play fucking hockey. And it seems like they're doing that, and they're putting it together. And so, I think a lot can be said about Todd. As soon as he took over last year, we had this great turnaround. It came up flat. We ended up missing the playoffs and getting cold at the end of the season again. So we'll see if he can kind of turn it around and make sure that we make playoff hockey happen here once again in Detroit. But they're electric. They're a lot of fun to watch. Again, I'm never going to claim to be a real Red Wings diehard. So if anything I said during the segment was just factually inaccurate or you disagreed with it, call into the voice line, the Gridiron voice line. Leave us your opinion. That phone number is 313-306-7939. Call me out. Get into that number. Let me know what you think. Let me know where I was wrong, what we need to improve on, what this team's doing well, what this team's doing bad. Call that, get involved. Educate me, please, because like I said, I'm not 100% certain on all my Detroit Red Wings stuff, but I love watching them and I love seeing them at the top of their division. So,
hell yeah, let's go Red Wings.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with some Sergei Fedorov talk. Like we mentioned, he had his jersey retired earlier this week, so we'll go over some Sergei Fedorov things, his story, and then play a few games and wrap up with Grit of the Week. All right, we are back with our segment 2. We had obviously all of segment 1 about the Red Wings' current team. Segment 2, a little bit of a blast from the past. Finally, after years and years and years and years of fans and players and a lot of coaches and everyone just begging for Sergei Fedorov's jersey to be retired by the Detroit Red Wings, it finally happened. Number 91 was hung up in the rafters earlier this week on Monday. And I recently watched a documentary on the Russian Five on Sergei Fedorov, and I knew the story. I knew the lore of how they came and changed hockey, but I didn't know all the ins and outs of how they got them and the drafting of them and what they were able to do. So I thought we'd do a little bit of an educational section of the podcast, go over that story, make sure all our listeners know, talk about Sergei Fedorov, his stats, and then, like I said, we'll play a little bit of fun games with some first Fedorov facts or fiction and some jersey retirement stuff. So Sergei Fedorov, obviously part of the Russian Five. Back, he was actually, I'm going to pull this up, but drafted in 1989. So forgive me if our listeners know this story, but for those who don't, 1989, right around the time when the USSR they obviously had hockey. Russian hockey was extremely good. It's extremely different, but there was a few Russian players already in the United States, but go with the Cold War, the tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. The thought was that you couldn't draft any Russian players just because you'll never get them over here in the States. It basically would be an empty draft pick. So the talent was there, but it was a wasted pick. You'd never get them to play here. The Detroit Red Wings, coming off of just terrible seasons, they decided, actually they had some new front office hires, they decided to take a swing, and they went ahead and just started drafting the Russian guys and basically trying to formulate these outlandish plans to try and get Sergei Fedorov and these other Russian guys that they've identified as elite talents over here into the United States in order to start playing. So Sergei Fedorov drafted in 1989 in the 4th round, 74th overall. So again, I think if you listen way back to one of our Mount Rushmores of draft steals, I almost guarantee Sergei Fedorov was in one of our picks. But the thing is with him, he was drafted in the 4th round, but that's just simply because, again, nobody wanted to waste a draft pick on a Soviet Union player because the thought was you'd never get him out of Russia. You'd never get him over here into the States to play. So really, long story short, how they ended up getting him to come over to Detroit, he was already playing at a different location. They sent one of a Detroit sports writer, Keith Grave. The Red Wings front office sent him to go literally pass a message to Sergei Fedorov saying, like, we drafted you. We want you to come to play for us in Detroit. Here's basically what we can give you. Here's how we think you're going to be able to do it. And really the rest is history. They had to get him secretly to defect from the USSR and come over here to Detroit. And then along with him, then you had the other Russian 4, Larionov, Vetsov, Konstantinov, Slavov, and then obviously Fedorov. You had all the 4 of the rest of them come and just basically changed the way that the Detroit Red Wings played hockey and NHL really played hockey in general. But he's been absolutely fantastic. He was absolutely fantastic for them. He revolutionized how hockey was, especially here in Detroit. So that's a little bit of the background story. There's a lot more ins and outs of the physical getting him to the United States, the passing of the note, the Detroit sports writer, that was the one who passed the note. But so I recommend everyone go to do some research on Fedorov and the Russian Five in general. I wanted to just give a little bit of backstory on him and like how he actually got to Detroit now that his number was finally retired by the Red Wings.
Yeah, dude. Sergei Fedorov is just he's such a Detroit sports legend. Apparently when he landed in Detroit, didn't speak a lick of English, but he knew one phrase, I want to play hockey. So I don't know if it's true or not. It sounds fucking awesome. I really hope it is true. But just shout out to Mike Ilitch for, quite literally smuggling him out, getting him to Detroit, and just letting Sergei become a legend. His stats among the Red Wings franchise are just insane, man. He played 908 games, 400 goals on the dot, so that's fourth in franchise history, 554 assists, so that's good for 954 points, sixth in franchise history, and of course, 3 Stanley Cups in 97, 98, and 02. So he's just an insane legend. Won a Hart Trophy, I believe, after he left the team. Won a Hart Trophy, league MVP. So first European trained player to ever win that trophy. Just he's definitely one of my favorite players growing up. He's probably one of everyone's favorite players growing up. He was so versatile. He could do it all. He was the guy that could still score. He could still defend. He was quite literally a Swiss Army knife of hockey players.
Yeah, he was described literally as like 3 players all in one, just because he was the best skater. He could he could shoot. He was smart. He understood. I mean, and it's interesting because you go back to 1990. He would not have been here in Detroit. Obviously, we drafted him. We got the note passed to him saying that we wanted him to come play for Detroit, what we could offer him, stuff like that. But he wouldn't have been here if the Soviet Union hadn't have agreed to play in the 1990 Goodwill Games, which I believe was like the first of its kind. It was like a charity match here in the United States. Their entire national team came over here to play in that, and literally he just didn't go home. We came to him, and I think it was Mike Ilitch's private jet literally came, took him from the hotel. He got on Mike Ilitch's private jet. They flew him to Detroit, and he just never went back to the Soviet Union. So it's crazy that like we wouldn't have had number 91 in Detroit history if the Soviet Union hadn't agreed to come play in the 1990 Goodwill Games. But we say all this because obviously on Monday, like we said, his jersey was finally retired. Well, I mean, the numbers speak for itself. Like, he's one of the best NHL players in history, in my opinion. And so it was a big question as to like why his number wasn't retired. There's a lot of different speculation as to why it wasn't retired, whether it was, what reason it was for. Majority of people believe that it was because he did end up leaving Detroit. He actually ended up leaving technically twice, I believe. He decided to leave the Red Wings, I think
it happened in the 90s, maybe like 98.
Yeah, I think it was like something in like the 98. But the Red Wings immediately swooped in and basically matched the deal. So we ended up staying in Detroit. So that was kind of technically the first time he left Detroit. And then obviously in 2003 in the offseason, he signed with Anaheim, the Mighty Ducks. It was a long contract dispute with Chris Ilitch. He rejected a 5-year, $50 million deal, a 4-year, $40 million contract offer. So it was the leaving in 2003 that the rumor is it just rubbed Ilitch the wrong way. Ilitch kind of felt that we brought Sergei to the NHL. We made him this international star, or at least national star. And so he was rubbed the wrong way. And basically that was the reasoning as to why his jersey was never retired, because there was bad blood there. It was long overdue. Obviously, it's a business. Yeah, obviously the situation for him and the other Russian players, it's obviously different just because we had to jump through so many hoops to get him here, but we won, multiple cups with him and stuff like that. So like, it's a business at the end of the day. Take more money. We see it all the time with players. So like the bad blood, kind of a little bit unfortunate there, but obviously Mike is no longer with us. I don't know if this is something that Chris was really pushing for. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt Chris Ilitch even knows who Sergei Fedorov is. And just kind of sees dollar signs there. But obviously it was something that ended up happening. They were able to finally retire his jersey after how many years? 22 years or something like that. And then in his acceptance speech, it was funny. I don't know if you saw this. He said, and I quote, leaving Detroit in 2003 was a mistake. And the fans just absolutely erupted just because he knew, whether he's just saying that because, it was the point in time and, he had all the fans there and everyone was, watching and stuff like that. Who knows? But he had to assume it was somewhat of a mistake to leave. Obviously, the Wings ended up going on and having success after him as well. So, yeah, Sergei, just an absolute Detroit legend. I'm so happy they finally got that done. It was something that I think pretty much every fan I ever talked to was on the same side of that. I feel like it was only the Ilitches that were rubbed the wrong way from him leaving in 2003 when it was just a business at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And I misspoke earlier. When he won the Hart Trophy league MVP, he was still with the Wings. I was reading 1994 as 2004 in my notes by mistake. So yeah, he was obviously Red Wings legend. Rumor has it that he actually took a little bit less money to leave than the Red Wings were offering him, and that was just because he wanted to get out under the shadow of guys like Yzerman. Apparently, that's just something that I've been reading. Lo and behold, he says it was a mistake. But at the end of the day, I'm really glad that both sides came to terms. I think that the Red Wings probably should have done this a long time ago. I think most people probably share that sentiment, but that's neither here nor there. We're here now, and they were able to honor him. He looked like he was having a great time. Like pretty much every Red Wings legend that you could ever think of was at that game last night. The broadcast was awesome, just like really high production value. Tons of interviews, tons of content created out of it. And so I was loving every second. And icing on top was, winning in overtime. So just a massive shout out to Sergei Fedorov, one of the Red Wings' best to ever do it.
I was just going to say, and how about that game? They came out and it was belt to ass against the Hurricanes, which is a really great game because obviously the Hurricane are at the top of their division too, 28-14-4. And so it was an important to kind of, and we talked about it ad nauseum in the first segment, like whether this Red Wings team is for real or not. So this was a great litmus test of like, are we actually going to make some noise down the stretch? And they came out as 3-0 in the second period. And then obviously the Hurricanes, who are a fantastic team, like, it makes sense. They started clawing back, and they scored 3 unanswered in the third period to take it to overtime. Kind of felt like maybe what was a perfect night was going to be spoiled. And then, obviously, like we mentioned in the first segment, the overtime winner by Kopp, there set up by Alex DeBrincat to take it home. It really was the icing on the cake. It was fantastic. I mean, you even look at former Detroit Red Wing Shane Gostisbehere with the goal for the Hurricanes there. So like it was just Red Wings winning all around. So it was a great night. I had some family members that were there. They said it was insane, like the best Detroit event they've ever been to. So I'm so glad that everyone was there. You saw Konstantinov was there. You saw a guy, other sort of other era of legends like Darren McCarty and those guys. So just happy to see all of this energy back with the Detroit Red Wings. A lot of these guys are still in the front office. They're helping Steve Yzerman and trying to rebuild this team and make us back to playoff contenders. So anything else on Sergei Fedorov before we get into a little bit of games for this retirement?
Yeah, just a couple more. I was just reading a couple clips as we're just going right now. Wayne Gretzky himself was quoted saying that there probably wasn't a more dominant player in the mid '90s than Sergei Fedorov. And obviously, like Steve Yzerman, he's talked about as a Red Wing great, but a lot of people say that Sergei, he was more physically gifted. He was stronger. He was faster. He could do things that Yzerman couldn't do. So just a really, really special player. And just one more thing that I'm reading about. I guess I didn't realize this, kind of growing up in the 90s, but not really being old enough, not really watching hockey until the early 2000s. But the dump and chase, which is super, super popular in today's hockey, it was pretty much started by the Russian Five, by the Red Wings. And so I guess maybe I knew it and forgot about it. Maybe I never knew about that. But I thought that was pretty cool because that is literally, I mean, that's how you play hockey right now. A lot of it is dump and chase. And yeah, it was started by guys that just were faster and stronger in the Russian Five.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you guys, to you and all our listeners, Amazon, not an ad, not a sponsor, but Amazon Prime. It's called The Russian Five. They do a fantastic job basically breaking down the defecting of all 5 of the players. 2 of them actually were already in the NHL and just came to Detroit after that. So technically, I think it was only a defecting of 3 guys. But it goes through all of them, how they came together, the style of offense that they came and brought to the NHL, how they won the Cup or how they struggled to win the Cup, how they finally won the Cup, the accident that happened after they won the Cup. It's a fantastic documentary on Amazon Prime, again, called The Russian Five. So I highly recommend everyone go listen to that. But so let's have a little bit of fun here. We've done about almost 40 minutes of Red Wings talk, both Red Wings currently this season and Sergei Fedorov. Let's have a little fun with his jersey retirement. We're going to play jersey retirement lock or long shot for Detroit sports. This is not just the Red Wings. This is going to be across all 4 major sports. I'm going to list off a few guys. You tell me if they're going to be locks to get their jersey retired in Detroit. That's the key thing, in Detroit, or if they're long shots and that they were great players. Maybe we loved them while they were here, but no chance they're getting their jersey retired. Kind of, I guess you couldn't even really say Sergei Fedorov was in any of those because numbers-wise, stats-wise, everything-wise, he was an absolute lock. The only reason it was a long shot was because of the bad blood that kind of was there. So I guess you got to take that into consideration too. But let's start off with, I want to say an easy one. Just because it's an easy one for us to debate, but the debate is there, so it's not so much easy as a yes or no. Let's start off on the football field. Detroit Lions, lock or long shot to have his jersey retired. Number 9, Matthew Stafford.
I want to say yes, but I mean, if he, continues to play more and more seasons with the Rams, and it really, I mean, he's the favorite to win MVP. I think he will.
Yeah.
He's got a lot left in the tank. That's very apparent. If he wins another Super Bowl with the Rams, that's 2 versus obviously the goose egg with the Lions. That's difficult. Like, does he retire a Ram or a Lion, and then at that point, does that change the Lions' decision to retire his number? I probably go long shot on that. Just talking it out.
It's that this one's extra. That's why I wanted to start with this one, because it's easy, because we know Matthew Stafford, we know all his numbers, we know how he is as a player, and but it is difficult because there's the debate of longevity versus production. And even when I say that, like production, he obviously had his production here. He just didn't have the end results that he's having with the Rams. So how do you weigh those things? And in a sense, like, the Lions were literally the laughingstock of all 4 major sports for so long. Stafford you could say brought us out of that. So like, how much weight does that carry towards having his number and his jersey retired? I'm leaning towards a long shot as well, unless there's some sort of like, end of a season swan song. He's basically out, and this doesn't normally happen in football. It's kind of like a baseball thing, or definitely sometimes a basketball thing, where like he's on, like, we signed like a 1-year deal. He kind of just comes in to coach like a younger guy, and he can technically retire as a Lion. But he had 11 years with the Detroit Lions. He's now on year 7, I believe, with the Rams. So for a guy like Jared Goff, who now has technically had more time in Detroit than he had in LA, you feel like Jared Goff maybe is more of a Lion than a Ram. But even with that swap, Stafford still played almost double the amount of time in Detroit that he played here. But the production numbers was there, but the success just wasn't there. So I think I'm with you on a long shot with Matthew Stafford. But there is a chance, like, some roundabout way he could retire as a Lion, because I think that's the only thing that would stop him, is like retiring as a Lion, that I think would stop him from being a lock to have his jersey retired.
Yeah, and I think just one more thing about Stafford. I mean, really the only quarterback in Lions history to have their number retired was Bobby Lane. So really, I mean, you're looking at Bobby Lane, Matthew Stafford. Obviously, Matthew Stafford leads the franchise in pretty much any metric. So in that sense, maybe it makes sense. But I still think it's a bit of a long shot.
All right, so let's go to the baseball diamond. I was gonna, I guess I could go with this guy. This is one I think almost falls in the same category. Maybe not so much to the extent of like how Matthew Stafford rose and lifted the Lions for with his own hands. But the baseball diamond, the Detroit Tigers. No, I was gonna go Max Scherzer, but let's put them together. Let's do a together JV and Max Scherzer, lock or long shot, because they do technically fall under the same. The same. I think obviously JV we drafted JV, so a little bit different, but. Let's go together, easy, JV and Scherzer.
Easy for me. Max Scherzer, no way. I mean, how many seasons did he even play with Detroit? Yeah, there's no way. I mean, maybe someone's going to retire his number, but definitely not as a Tiger. But JV is a very interesting one. Justin Verlander, like, obviously, he was our golden child and came up through the Tigers system. His rookie season, brought them to the World Series, first World Series that the Tigers had been to since they won the World Series in '84, right? So brought them to another World Series in 2012. Obviously, didn't get the job done in either. You could say a lot about his postseason stats versus regular season. At the end of the day, I would love to say that he is getting his jersey retired. He's retiring as a Tiger. But he won 2 World Series with the Astros and spent a lot of time with the team. And I don't know. I don't know if he retires an Astro or a Tiger. Again, would love for him to retire as a Tiger, but I'm just not sure it's going to happen.
And I think if you would have asked me this like 2 years ago, I would have said that it's much more of a long shot, just because I think he was still with the Astros. He was obviously still playing extremely well, and he was definitely trending towards retiring as an Astro. I think because he ended up leaving Houston, and that was with the Giants, and even at the trade deadline, there was talk about the Tigers going after him because he was made available and stuff like that. I think going to the Giants in San Francisco almost hurts his Astros numbers, or his retiring as an Astro a little bit, just because Like if it was just us versus them, he had his most recent success with them. I'm gonna probably give it to them. But because he left and ended up going there, I think I'm leaning and I do actually, outside of the Stafford talk and whether we think, he has any chance of a comeback here, which is, slim to none. I think there actually is a real situation in which Justin Verlander comes back and finishes his year for Detroit as a Detroit Tiger. Because like I said, doesn't likely happen in football, but like basketball and baseball, when you're not playing every day, you can still play into your 40s and still perform at a decently high level. I think there is a real chance he actually does retire in a Detroit Tigers uniform, and that absolutely would solidify him getting his number retired. So we're gonna say on that one, we're gonna say what? So Matthew Stafford is a long shot. Max Scherzer, very long shot. Justin Verlander gonna be a lock for us.
I hope so. I really would. I would like to think so. The only thing is, the 2 Cy Youngs that he won with Houston, the 2 World Series he won with Houston. That's the only thing that's slowing me down a little bit. But I really want to say lock.
Yeah, and that's fair because again, it's all about success and not technically getting to the highest point in your career with the team in which we're talking about it. So it's difficult. I mean, it really. It depends on whether you think it's success, longevity, what you meant to the city, and kind of a combination of all that. It really depends. So, okay, let's keep it going. We got a few more of these guys. Let's see, which one do I want to go with? Here's a fun one. Again, going back to the football field, bringing back the discussion of longevity versus, overall success. What about Legatron himself, number 4, Jason Hanson?
Oh yeah, I'm all for it, man. I don't know. Can you retire a kicker? I say yes. I say lock. Now, if I feel like it's probably if you would have, they probably already would have done it already, right? Like Jason Hanson's been retired for like a decade now, but I'm all for it. I mean, I don't know if he still does, but there was a time where he was the franchise leader in points scored. There's also a time where he was like literally our only good player. Like there was some really dark ages where we were starting guys like fucking John Kitna at quarterback, and literally we had one player that everyone loved, and that was Jason Hanson. And then obviously you welcome in the Calvin Johnson era and the Matthew Stafford era, and Jason Hanson's still there, and he's still one of our best players. So I would love to see it. I'm gonna go lock, even though I don't know if it's gonna happen, but for me, I want it to be a lock.
I think you can. I think that's a case, like I said just before this, it's you had to weigh the longevity, the overall success, the skill, and then the final thing is like what they meant to the city. And I think you nailed it on the head. Like Jason Hanson for a long time was truly the only guy you kind of came to see, which is so sad to say about a kicker in a franchise when you're going to see the kicker. But I think he meant a lot, and a lot of people like, I know for me, that was my first jersey, my first Lions jersey, a Hanson jersey. I feel like a lot of people that was the case, at least our age, because when we were, learning about football, learning about the Lions, there was no other jersey to get. It was Legatron, so I think you can. I think maybe outside looking in, other franchises will be like, that's fucking lame. Like they're retiring a kicker. But I think you only get it if you're a Lions fan and you went through those times with us. So, all right, let's wrap up with these two guys. I'm going to combine them together because same sport, and I think they kind of represent the same mindset, and they kind of fall under the same category. We're going back to hockey. We started with Sergei Fedorov getting his jersey retired on Monday. We're going back to hockey. These two guys, number 55, Nicholas Kronwall, and number 25, Darren McCarty. Two guys that embodied Detroit and did a little bit different eras and did slightly different things. Kronwall lays the wood during play. McCarty, which obviously he did too, but McCarty known for, just being the punisher, the enforcer, not necessarily a super great hockey player, but just meant, what Detroit meant in like the, early 2000 and 2007, 2008. So two guys that like embodied the spirit of Detroit. Are they a lock to get their jerseys retired based on how much they meant to the franchise, or are they a long shot?
I love both of those players, and yes, they meant a tremendous amount to the Red Wings. I think that both of them are long shots. I just think that the pedigree of a Red Wings player to get your jersey retired and in the rafters, like you have to be a god. You have to be just better than most, better than the rest of the league. You're looking at a guy like Fedorov, like Yzerman, Gordie Howe, Ted Lindsay, Nick Lidstrom. I mean, these are legends of the game, and for that matter, I'm sorry, but neither Darren McCarty or Nicholas Kronwall is they're not legends of the game. And I think that of any Detroit sports team, it's probably hardest to get your jersey retired as a Red Wing, just because it's such a prestigious franchise. It's one of the winningest hockey franchises of all time, and for that reason, I think both Longshot.
And that's a great point, because I think it does matter, the sport, and based on how many are retired and stuff like that. And I just did a real quick Google search. Again, if this is wrong, sue me, I don't care. As of now, for all 4 Detroit sports, the Red Wings have 9 numbers retired. As of Fedorov's jersey, he technically was the 9th. So you had Terry Sawchuk, Red Kelly, Nicholas Lindstrom, Ted Lindsay, Gordie Howe, Alex DeVecchio, Sid Abel, Steve Yzerman, and Sergei Fedorov. The Detroit Tigers have 8 jerseys retired up on the wall at Comerica Park. Charlie Gehringer, Alan Trammell, Hank Greenberg, Al Kaline, Sparky Anderson, Hal Newhouser, Willie Horton, Jack Morris, and then obviously all the teams have 42 for Jackie Robinson. The Pistons have the most with 11 in players and 1 coach, Chuck Daly. So you have Chauncey Billups, Chuck Daly, the coach, Ben Wallace, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Isaiah Thomas, Vinnie Johnson, Bob Lanier, Dave Bing, Rip Hamilton, and Bill Lambier. And then the Lions have the least, obviously must be the most difficult, with just 6 players, 6 numbers retired, I should say. Dutch Clark, Bobby Lane, Doak Walker, Joe Schmidt, Chuck Hughes, and then Barry Sanders, Billy Sims, and Len Barney share the retired number 20. The team basically retired the number from all 3 of them. So, and I'll say, so the Lions only with 6, and pretty much all of them are from well beyond our time. Obviously Barry is somewhat before our time, but everyone else well beyond our time. So it's if you're the Pistons, maybe you got a better odds of getting your jersey retired. If you're the Lions, better odds getting into the NFL Hall of Fame rather than getting your jersey retired, it sounds like. So I get what you're saying with those guys. I think Kronwall, I'm with you that it's a long shot. I think it's less of a long shot for McCarty, just because how much Darren McCarty meant to the city, how much he's still here, he's still around. I know there's a lot of differing opinions on Darren McCarty and his career and his post-career antics, but I think just basically how he embodied Detroit and what he meant to those teams, what he meant to the city. I'm going to lean towards, obviously I can't say a lock for him, but if it's going to be lock or long shot, I think I'm going to say lock for Darren McCarty.
All right. I respect it. I respect it for sure. This is super sad. I didn't know this even was a thing, but Chuck Hughes, did you know he's the only NFL player to die on the football field? I had no idea.
I think my dad was at that game. I'm pretty sure that was at the Silverdome.
It was in Detroit. Yeah, it was at the Silverdome. That's crazy, man. I did not realize that. It was it looks like 1971.
He wasn't at the game then. I thought maybe he was. Or maybe he saw, maybe he was
at
a game.
He could have been a kid.
He could have been. Oh, for sure he could have been. Maybe he was at a game when a guy got paralyzed or something. I know there was some sort of game like that. But yeah, I did know the Lions had the only guy to ever die in a game. I didn't realize it was that far back, but yeah, sad. So he's obviously retired. So, but not to end on that note.
My bad. Exactly. That's my bad. I shouldn't have brought it up right before the end of the show.
Well, now you know. That's I'm sure, morbid or not, that's a trivia question at some bar or something like that. But so that was a lock or long shot for jersey retirements. Congrats to Sergei Fedorov and his jersey number 91 finally being retired by the Detroit Red Wings. Hopefully this is just the first of many. All these guys, we obviously want to keep it, like you said, keep it a sacred thing, but there are a ton of guys that I think deserve to get their jersey retired. So shout out to him, shout out to the Russian Five, shout out to that team, shout out to the organization, shout out to the franchise in general, just being so good, number 1 in the Atlantic right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Cade Cunningham brings multiple championships to Detroit and is a lifelong Pistons, he will have number 2 in the rafters as well. So just wanted to say that.
I'm so glad you said that, because in 20 years, I'm gonna bring Cade Jr., my son, to go watch the ceremony getting Cade's jersey retired. Why? What's up?
I panicked for a second, and then I'm like, wait, you're so stupid. Don't even bring this up. But I was just looking at the list, and number 2, Chuck Daly, retired, referring to his 2 NBA championships. And I'm like, oh, they can't retire number 2. But then I'm like, well, Cade wears number 2. Like, they can still retire it if they want to, because the player currently wears it. So I panicked in my head for a second. It was dumb.
Yes. Cade can and will get retired eventually after he brings us to the promised land. If not this year, soon. And like you mentioned to start the show, we have a lot to talk about the Pistons. I could sit here and talk. I literally did a solo Pistons podcast show for a year, and I love doing every second of it. So as we get into the deadline in the next few weeks, we will be definitely doing some Pistons talk. So, okay, let's wrap up the show with our grits of the week. You guys know already, Grid of the Week is brought to you by Pins and Aces. It's the winter time, but it's 43 degrees here in Michigan. There's a chance you could get out there and sneak a few holes in. I'm sure some of the courses wouldn't be happy, but hey, if you can't get out there and if it's going to snow a little more, you can still go to some sort of simulator. If you're doing any of that, you got to go to Pins and Aces. Pins and Aces is a Colorado-based golf brand making premium polos, head covers, and gear that perform on the course and stand out everywhere else. This is all gear that is made in the USA with quality that you can feel. Feels great on the course. You know what they say, look good, feel good, play good. You guys can enjoy an exclusive discount with our promo code GRIT at pinsandaces.com. That's promo code GRIT, G-R-I-T, for 21% off any product at checkout at pinsandaces.com. Get ready for this coming spring by getting your gear from Pins and Aces. Kyle, kick us off with Grit of the Week.
Grid of the week. I'm going with the low hanging fruit here. I'm just plucking that apple because I can see it right now. It's right within arm's reach. Grid of the week. Sergei Fedorov. I mean, it's easy. It's easy. One more time for number 91 in the rafters for all of eternity, or at least as long as the world's turning. Just an absolute legend. I'm really glad that we got to spend this entire pod talking about the Red Wings, talking about Sergei Fedorov, and just really everything he means to this franchise, everything he was able to do. Not just for the Red Wings, but the game of hockey. We said the game of hockey was kind of changed forever from the Russian Five. So I will definitely be looking at that Russian Five doc on Amazon Prime. I haven't seen it yet. Really pumped to watch that. My buddy also, for my birthday, got me a Russian Five book. So I have a little bit of homework. I got to read a book now, but I'm very pumped to read all about those boys and just learn a little bit more. But Sergei, I mean, he embodies grit, man. He was faster than anyone, stronger than anyone on the ice. Could do a little bit of everything. Swiss Army knife. Grit of the week, Sergei Fedorov.
So in thinking about Grit of the Week, obviously I thought about him too. He is the obvious answer here. He deserves it. But I knew one of us was going to go there. And like you mentioned, we had spent the entire episode talking about him. So I'm going to go a little bit outside the box, searching a little bit around. There's no Lions to give it out to. There's no Tigers to give it out to, which, just as a little side note, Tigers going through arbitration, doing a lot of contract talk with Terry Skubal. We'll be breaking that down here in a future episode shortly. I'm going to go to the basketball court and give it to somebody that I just was watching the other night, and he just started the game on fire. He came here as a free agent. Actually, no, technically, we traded for him. We traded some money from Fontecchio for him. That's Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson, coming from Miami, he was known for one thing. He was known for making three-pointers. He had terrible defense, but he hits three-pointers. Coming here to Detroit, he was expected to fill the Malik Beasley hole, which was obviously an extremely large hole to fill because of how historic of a season Malik had. And Duncan Robinson is doing exactly that. He's doing it in the lineup. He's doing that, or I should say, in the starting lineup. He's doing that out of the starting lineup. He's doing that with actual defense, decent defense. It's not great, but it's decent defense. And looking at his numbers for from this past year, he's averaging 7 3-point attempts, which is insane generally. Almost 40% from three. He's having his second best points per game in the last 6 years at 11.8 points per game. 36 minutes, 36 games played. I believe last I checked, he was second most in minutes played this season, just behind Cade Cunningham, just showing how important he is to this team, which is why when we get to the trade deadline in a few weeks, we need to have a backup plan in case, God forbid, anything happens to him. But I think Duncan Robinson is just filling this hole in Detroit phenomenally. He started the other night against the Clippers when we had no Jalen Duren, no Isaiah Stewart, no Cade Cunningham, no Tobias Harris. Basically had all of our bench guys playing and starting. He started the game with the first 13 points or something like that. He started on fire. I think Duncan deserves some sort of a grit of the week for us here. So shout out to him. Shout out to the Pistons and what they're doing.
Hell yeah. Shout out Duncan Robinson. I mean, coming in age 31 now, you're thinking maybe he might decline a little bit. And he's really done the opposite. He's excelled. He's been just as steady as ever. 12 points. Yeah, you mentioned his numbers. I just have his 3-point percentage stats up in front of me. He is just... He's you know what you're going to get from him. You know you're going to get 40% from him just night in and night out. Last 3 seasons, he's averaged 0.395% from three, 0.393, 0.393. So he is just a walking 40% from three. And when he catches that ball, he's got a good shot of making it, man. He's playing tremendous. Really glad he's on our team. Shout out Duncan Robinson.
And mini shout out to JB Bickerstaff for putting together a roster around him that still has top defense in the league while still having a guy like Duncan Robinson being included and getting that many minutes and not being the great at defense. All right, That's our show. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. You can find Kyle and I both on Twitter at Kyle_Marino and myself at Tyler_Dutton. You can follow the podcast itself on Instagram or on TikTok at Gridiron Report. You can find us on Twitter at Gridiron Report 1, and you can watch these full-length episodes on YouTube at Gridiron Report. We're putting out clips every single week on all forms of social media. Again, these full long episodes in which you can watch Kyle and I blabber on for an hour here. Finally, you can join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That phone number is 313-679-39. Again, if you have anything you want to talk about the Red Wings, you want to talk about the Pistons, the trade deadline's coming up, you still want to jump into some Lions stuff and talk about how the season went, call that voicemail. Give us your opinion. We'll play it on the podcast. We'll give our thoughts on the topic. Call into that. Join the conversation there. Finally, if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars. Leave us a review saying so. And again, follow us on all forms of social media. It allows us to give you guys even more Detroit sports news and content. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, y'all. Let's go Red Wings.
A journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retired. Grit iron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thunder and loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat, make your fandom a vow.